Erupted today. What a night, man.
By the way, this deli, coffee's not very good.
No, they're not known
the
for their coffee. If you want the good coffee...
What are they known for?
It's right next to my store. So
proximity.
When I'm not on my horrific diet, I am eating there 3 meals a day. They're really good if you really want to just go off the deep end. It's they do a sausage and peppers where I don't think it's meant to be put on a sandwich, but I'm thinking of, my fond circus memories where,
you used to get sausage and pepper at the circus?
Not the circus. What do you call it? When it's one of those fairs with the carnies and you got...
Oh, like a state fair or something?
Yeah,
or a carnival?
What's the one that's near us?
St. Rocco's?
St. Rocco's, and these pious Catholics are pinning dollars to a statue. Couldn't be more of a graven image,
Right.
They're pinning dollars to it.
Yeah, go ahead. Run down the Catholics. Sure. Why not?
I mean, and we're back.
Oh, yeah.
And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat.
And I'm Mike.
And
boy, do we have a show for you. See, I'm trying to buy into that.
Today on RMA, Mike and Nat take on the shameful and illegal practice of body brokering and review the new documentary of the same name.
That's not a documentary.
And Nat takes a fall trying to skateboard. All this and more today on RMA. Coming at ya.
It's a docudrama.
Well, we're reviewing this. It's weird.
It's not a true story, though.
Can I just say I didn't get to the end of it because of my chaos, but I was able to take copious notes on the first three quarters of it.
Well, we'll get to that. So anyway.
Yeah, so it's like a documentary. It's
Wait.
called
Housekeeping.
We'll
get to the documentary.
Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Drop us a 5-star review, please, guys, on the Apple Podcast app. Great reviews will be read on the show.
Yes, they will.
Tell us your story by submitting it on middleagesrecovery.com. We actually have a website, and you could be a guest on the show, or we could read your story.
We could. We probably will, since we need content. Always content.
Content is king.
Every week we have to do this.
What we say in search engine marketing, what I used to be in, content is king.
Content is king.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to be great content, really.
No, it just has to be something.
So, you know what I noticed lately along those lines, very quick? You ever ask Siri or Google or whatever sort of robot you have in your kitchen to show you a recipe, right?
Yes.
And it brings up the recipe, and then you have to read through 5 pages of someone talking about the recipe before they actually put the recipe down. And you notice that the paragraphs are just simply larded with search terms.
Yes.
Everybody just needs to get all that shit in there. It's so fucking annoying.
And
really
that's not what when I do search engine marketing, when I'm consulting a client or I'm doing something for us, the idea, and I always get these clients or other people I'm working with that they want to do that. They think that this is a good idea. We need 3% of keyword, saturation.
Yeah.
Now, I'm of the marketing school that, you do want to use your target keyword phrases, but it has to be done in a natural way, because if you get traffic to that page that you're so happy about, the person gets there and it sounds ridiculous. It's a big waste of time. So you have to.
But you get the click, right?
You get the click, but
isn't that worth something?
Not as much as it would be if they click. You get the click, and it's also worth reading.
We should do another podcast on SEO optimization.
Oh God,
because I would love to delve deeply into that topic. But
anytime
we do have a full larder today. Our schedule is tightly packed.
Yes. Do we? So we were going to read Jeff's story, part 2.
Part 2.
We had a little snafu on the last one, so we posted.
Jeff.
Mike, I don't know.
I fucked up the edit. I'm sorry.
He did. And the music was too loud. So we posted the first part of Jeff's story on our private group. So join our private discussion group on Facebook. because it's unsearchable and nobody can hear your screams.
Or you could listen last week if you don't mind some like Django Reinhardt guitar riffs playing in your ear.
It was a cool
at the same
idea.
time.
It just kept running. It's got to come in and fade quickly.
I know how it works, and I usually get it right.
This is my diva
Somehow that
partner
last
here.
week I was rushed and, Okay, so
is this Jeff's story part 2?
Jeff's story part 2.
Okay, continue.
So you may recall where we left Jeff in part 1. He was at his mother's funeral, or on the day of the funeral, he got a call from Child Protective Services that he had failed another drug test and they were taking his son away.
Oops.
Ooh, dear.
Jeez.
Okay, part 2. Fast forward to November 1st, 2009. I had been in IOP treatment for about a week. What's IOP treatment?
Intensive outpatient.
Okay. I was only trying to get my son back so I could get back to my old using life. I was going to IOP 3 times a week, but getting high on heroin and crack at night, so I would never look high in my IOP meetings. Strategy.
Yeah, I was doing stuff like that, too.
Right. But then I had my results from the drug test that came back, and of course I knew I was going to fail. But this is treatment, right? Aren't they here to help us?
That's rhetorical. You're not supposed to answer that.
Right. I was thinking like a little addict entitlement there.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, what do I know about this? I was told that I was going to be kicked out. The drug counselor asked my age. I told him 31, and he told me I would never see 40. He explained to me he had been in the treatment industry for 20 years and has seen many people just like me, unwilling to put in any work, unwilling to participate in the meetings, and this just will not work for me. And for some odd reason, I felt his words. For the first time, I was truly feeling powerless over my addiction. I knew I wanted a better life. Well, that day I had to apologize to everyone in the facility for lying to them. I used to tell everyone I was on Suboxone and I wasn't getting high anymore. I made a decision to start going to meetings, and I was going to try this thing. Well, that was 11 years ago. I did get my son back from CPS after 2 years. I was getting drug tested weekly and passing them. I was going daily NA meetings and making new friends. I started working steps with a sponsor, and after 4 years, I met the girl who I'm going to marry this year. Yay, wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Wow.
We've now been together for, sorry, I could have used them.
Yeah,
I've now been together for 8 years. We're both doing well in our recovery. I will say we both stopped going to NA meetings a couple of years ago. We both felt the same way about it. It's a great program, but it's too much like high school, too much drama and bullshit.
Yeah. Some people love that, though.
People thrive off drama and bullshit.
Absolutely.
It's like makes the world go round. We still have many friends in all kinds of recovery programs. We bought our first home almost 2 years ago. Awesome. And I also own a T-shirt printing business, the House of Garb Custom Printing. Guys, go check them out. They do really good work. They're printing
Nice
our
plug,
shirts,
Jeff.
in fact.
Good work.
I really meant this to be a short story, but it's really hard to make a short version of a long story. That is true. Thanks, Nat and Mike, for creating this podcast. I relate to both of you so much. I'm now 43 years old and a father of 4. Awesome. Much love to all the middle-aged recovery listeners out there. Back at you, Jeff. Much love to you, and thanks for sharing your story with us, because, that's great. We love to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about this whole situation, doing the shirts with Jeff and all of that, is we've finally met somebody, like a real person, who's he's pretty cool. He's cool. We were like friends. I'm texting back and forth with him, and it's just like, I'm like, wow. And it's just people who I wouldn't have known if we hadn't done this. It's cool. If
you do join the Facebook group, you can see Jeff modeling one of our shirts that he helped create.
Sprechen Sie sassy? Do you remember that skit in SNL?
I could never stay up that late.
So yeah, that's the other thing. That's the segue. Thank you, Jeff, so much, because he's also responsible for our first run of T-shirts, and I think they're pretty cool. We're sort of figuring out the best way to get them out to you and collect money for them and so forth.
Right.
I think we're going to do, if we do it, $30 for the shirt, because it's almost like a donation to us. Like we're supporting the show. We'd like to keep doing this.
Yes.
And it would be cool just to rep the show. So please check it out. Send us a message on Facebook. Join that private Facebook group. It's really cool. It's the real hardcore listeners, the people who are really listening to the show, and it's fun to talk to you guys and get your opinions. I wanted to read a few of the posts that people were talking about the marijuana thing, get some listener reaction. But I had a really nasty night last night.
We'll talk about your nasty night, but we'll do a follow up on that show probably soon, because what we didn't realize is that, and of course we scooped Dopey on this one.
Yes, we did.
Sorry, Dave.
Not on purpose. We got it first. It was not a ripoff.
No, we just decided to do the pot episode, and then the next day, Dopey comes out with the alt recovery medical marijuana show. We were like, oops.
I think this stuff is in the ether. I think, people,
definitely.
It's sort of like Carl Jung's collective unconscious, where the brains are like a receiver of the soul and the ether.
Right. And everyone's thinking about weed.
So it's coming in, and it's how, 2 patents can get filed, and this happens at the same exact time in completely separate, situations, different countries. So how does that happen?
Indra's net, the Buddhists would say. It's like a diamond in every knot reflecting every other diamond. It's like
it's a holographic universe. That's right. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Last time I tried to do that, I ended up stepping on Jeff's story for
come on.
I have limits, man.
So St. Patty's Day. I mean, it's funny because this used to be for drinkers and drug users alike. St. Patty's Day was the number one. Let's get fucked up.
And it was right up there with New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving Eve, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day.
It's a lot of days like that, apparently. But somehow, when you're involving the Irish people, it adds an extra kind of level of frivolity.
Indeed.
Leprechaun-y. I didn't used to go too crazy on St. Patrick's Day. The St. Patrick's Day story I remember the most is it was in the middle of the day, St. Patrick's Day. Excuse me, this might be 20 years ago. And I got into this horrific car accident, but I was stone cold sober that day.
Wow.
It was crazy because at that time I was using mostly cocaine. I think I was on steroids. I was all jacked up at the time. And I hadn't really gotten into opiates. I was really just on uppers. And but that minute, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What happens is, because I'm red-green colorblind and I wear glasses to correct it now. But if there is a red light, with a tree behind it in a bright, clear day, it vanishes to me because the red and the green, I don't see it. Wow. I don't even see the light. And so I just went right into an intersection. A lady was coming, perpendicular. And I hit her into an oncoming car.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was really had PTSD from that.
I'm sure.
I wasn't. I was shaking in my bed later that night, just lying down.
Wow.
That was the first of many horrific accidents.
Well, St. Patty's Day memories, man.
Yeah, but I'll never forget. Because I remember thinking, wow, this happened on St. Patty's Day, and I'm not even high.
Was anyone else drunk in the other cars?
No, they were just like a family. It was like an older woman and this guy. And
sometimes it's sort of like
it was awful.
Like pinball on St. Patrick's Day out there, cars.
Yeah, no, I don't think they were.
Right.
My goodness, but I don't know. What about you? Were you a big Saint? Are you Irish? No,
you're
just really white.
I'm everything and nothing at the same time.
You're a mutt.
Well,
just like the rest of us.
I was adopted as a kid, so like growing up, my adopted family's heritage was Polish on one side and German on the other. I did the 23andMe DNA thing a few years ago.
Yeah.
So mostly German, French, British, Irish.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, there is stuff in there. And Italian.
That's interesting. The being adopted angle. You are the second really seemingly well-adjusted person I've met.
Well-adjusted, huh?
Yeah, well, because there's a lot of...
Took a while.
From ignorant people, there is a lot of, if something's going on with someone, if that person is adopted, they'll immediately say, oh, well, they're adopted.
Right.
But I'm like, the 2 people I know and who were adopted seem to be the 2 and this other friend of mine who I knew from college. And he's just like... In fact, you could be brothers. I mean, you guys actually look very similar.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's entirely possible.
Imagine. That'd be so crazy. But he's like one of the most well-adjusted, successful.
Wow. So all those years of crack and drinking.
No, but you made it through.
It's true. I wouldn't mind doing a show or a segment on adoptive people, because there is a much higher rate of suicide and substance abuse among adopted people, and mental health issues.
That would be very
There's a whole
interesting.
variety of reasons for that, which are a bit beyond the kin of this week's show. But
Cool.
Yeah.
But having said that, so what was your St. Patty's Day, man? Where were your typical St. Patty's days when you were running and gunning?
They were usually spent. I had a particular delight for old man Irish bars. So I used to find the oldest manish bar that I could find.
I know what you mean.
I'd sent you the name of that bar yesterday. Do you remember what it was?
The Blarney Stone.
The Blarney Stone. There's one near Penn Station in Manhattan.
Stone.
Yeah, that was the kind of place. It's one of those places where you go in and it just, the smell of stale beer is everything. And
smoke.
And the Blarney Stone. The reason I like them also is because they would give out free corned beef sandwiches on St. Patrick's Day.
Was it good? It was a good corned beef?
No, it was horrible. It was like, the fatty end with like the tiny little bit of meat on it that you cut off when you're sorry. That they would just carve that up and put it on rye bread and hand it out to the drunks, and most people didn't know the difference, or were too drunk.
Part, man. Fat is my favorite.
Yeah, I don't know. I always remember gristle. There was always gristle involved. I mean, I don't have any real distinct memories of St. Patrick's Day, which...
My big question was, because this was always of interest to me when I was in it, and I would always be interested in what time people started drinking on St. Patty's Day, because you would hear different things. We were from call them up, hey, what are you doing tonight? Tonight, I started, the bar opens at 10 a.m. So the bars open early. And it's an all day.
You just reminded me of probably the last great St. Patrick's Day that I experienced. I was working for a law firm in Brooklyn at the time, and it was a law firm when the partners were Irish. There was a Fegan, a Fanning, that kind of thing. And so they would bring everybody across to the Irish bar on St. Patrick's Day at 11 a.m. And everyone would, you'd get back from court usually around then. Everybody'd go out to the bar. We got shit-faced, and then spent the afternoon like drinking in the office. And then I remember rolling out of the office, meeting some friends at a bar in Union Square and staying out till like midnight. And I mean, I look back on that now and I wonder, like, how is it physically possible to pour 20 pints of Guinness into your body in in a 12-hour period? But it is entirely possible.
Yeah. Back in the day, I feel like I used to recover. Like I would do 2 nights of like snorting Ritalin or something, and then go to class, and just get through it, go home, and crash.
Well, that's it. I mean, yeah, fun stuff, I guess. I don't know, but yesterday I just ran around and I bought like cupcakes and cookies with little St. Patty's Day shit on them for the kids. My
kids had to dress up like in green, and there's a new trend amongst our children, our little snowflakes, and it's just like for the Elf on the Shelf. Apparently, the kids in my youngest son's grade, they have like, on the morning of St. Patrick's Day, some leprechaun has come and done some shenanigans, apparently.
I like the word shenanigans.
Yeah, shenanigans. And so I don't know anything about this. I didn't do it, and I never heard of it. And my wife told me, she's like, Max was disappointed because no leprechaun came and played shenanigans on him or something. And I said, is that a thing? I'm like, somehow I failed as a father, and I didn't even know it. So you fathers and mothers out there, next St. Patrick's Day, if you're not already doing this, you got to have a shenanigan making. Can you make a shenanigan?
I don't know. You can carve it out of a special wood that only grows outside of Dublin.
That's interesting. So my St. Patty's Day was interesting. Firstly, things are getting very busy at my store, which is phenomenal, and it's also horrifying because I was already had my whole post-shop owner life planned. I'm finishing college. I'm like, I'm going to go get my master's in social work, and I'm going to have some credentials to do a show like this, instead of just spewing nonsense. So I had this crazy busy day, and then my Irish neighbor, even though it wasn't St. Patty's Day, he every year makes a really like good corned beef cabbage, but it's like somehow he makes it healthy. It's probably not, but he says it.
There's no such thing.
No, but it's like juicy, it's moist, and the cabbage tastes good, and the potatoes, and he's a big drinker, never seen him drunk, but he's always has a beer in his hand, especially in Guinness and Miller High Life is. He walks around, he's got one of those beer can cozies.
Right.
And so he'll just take one out and grab another Miller High Life.
It's like lighting a cigarette off the last cigarette.
And so I'm coming home and telling them, because they went over to their house because I had to meet a customer. So customers are panicking right now to buy sports stuff because everybody's playing again and nobody has anything.
Right.
And that's actually my business model is panic and anxiety, and then add a little guilt, for like, oh, we have to shop in town.
Right.
So panic, anxiety, and guilt is the three pillars that success is built on. And so I get a call from my wife. I'm almost home. And she's on the phone and she says, oh, hey, could you pick up some Guinness for Brendan? And and it was this surreal, like my wife asking me to please pick up some alcohol.
Right.
Like I was listening to her talk and it was an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because just obvious reasons. It's been the bane of our existence for so long. Merely the mention of me, if I tell her I've got a craving, even, it gets her upset. And now here she is. Can you please pick up some beer? And I was just like, well, she sounded like, she was a hostage, that it was, making this call. She's like, because she can't tell. The neighbor knows I don't drink, but he doesn't know why, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
So he wasn't thinking anything of it.
Can you have Nat pick up some beers, right?
And she's like, yeah, so could you please pick up some Guinness? And I was like, yes, okay. And so they wanted me to go to the beer distributor, which is close to my store, but I was already mostly home. On top of that, a guy I used to go to outpatient rehab with works there. And I'm like, I can't go into the beer distributor and I don't want to be seen buying it. Awesome. So I go into the supermarket and still I have this anxiety about buying beer. I'm like, I can buy beer. I'm like, I'm afraid someone will see me. And it was so bizarre, Is
that the first time since you've been sober that you bought alcohol?
Yeah, since I've been sober.
Wow.
I don't think one time I may have gotten a bottle of wine for my wife or something, but I don't remember. This may be the first outright, can you please pick up some beer?
Damn.
And having to buy it.
It sounds like you handled it well.
I did. I went in, because they have the self-checkout now, and I didn't want to be seen. I grabbed 2 4-packs of the Guinness, and I'm, usually in the supermarket, I walk very carefully around the alcohol section. I deliberately don't walk past it.
They have an astonishingly large beer selection in that supermarket.
Oh, my God. Yeah, they have a lot of stuff. And here I am, just going there, picking up the beer. I'm like, it's okay. I keep having to tell myself, no, you're not in trouble. You're not doing this. I checked out. I walked into the door. I handed the beer to my friend, and that was it. And that was all there was.
Awesome.
Now,
I also went to the beer distributor yesterday near your office to buy a couple of 6-packs of non-alcoholic beer. It's funny. I go in there and I bought 2 because one said dark and the other one said IPA, and it's by this company Athletic Brewing. That's they have a bit of a buzz in the NA circles.
Pun intended.
These days, non-alcoholic, not Narcotics Anonymous, for making beer to suit the active, non-intoxicated lifestyle. So, but I was like, well, what if I don't like it? The dark one, then I should have a different one to drink. So I bought 2, and I'm like, doesn't that sound familiar? So I'm walking up with my 2, and I think the guy who was working there is the guy that you
ponytail.
Yeah.
He's an amazing trumpet player.
Is he really?
He went to the music school I went to, but he actually graduated from that school.
First time I went in there to buy a 6-pack of NA beer, 6 months ago or whatever, that he waited on me, he made some comment about, it's cool, man, So I was like, all right, I figure this guy knows what's what,
His thing was marijuana, mostly.
You don't say. He looks
he
like
might
he
have
smoked a joint or 2.
For a while, they were allowed, because my final resting place, an outpatient, was a less militant, it was a lot. I mean, for me, it was very militant because I had specific probationary things. Was not allowed to test dirty for anything, but he was in on his own volition, and he would talk in group about, I haven't drank in this many months, but still trying to cut down my marijuana. And I would look at my therapist, and I would just And she's just like, oh, no, that's okay. And I give her a hard time about it the next time I had a one-on-one. I'm like, really? It's okay? I mean, I thought this was and I was really pissed, mostly because I was jealous, I think. But I was like, I thought this was a program of abstinence. It's a very bad precedent to set where you're saying it's
Listen
okay.
to you.
And
yes. On the high horse.
Oh, my horse was high, all right. It was the highest horse.
Not as high as his.
No. So that was interesting.
Now you're Mr. Alt Recovery. It's crazy.
Alternative. Hey, did your 16-year-old son start a job?
Yeah. Oh. Wow, we're really hewing to the outline this week. Yeah. We realized that because his grades aren't so great, he's going to need a little boost to get into college. So I figured we should send him to work. But he's lazy and working.
I thought you were just going to bribe somebody.
Working for someone else is, we were concerned about that because he worked at the crappy Italian restaurant in town for 2 days.
He could work here. You didn't even ask.
I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't even think about it.
No,
that would be a lot less driving, actually, because this is in Lindenhurst where he has to go. So I have to drive him there because he can't drive. Anyway.
I could talk to the boy about the Catholic Church and how they're evil and so forth. But now that he's part of the Catholic Church, he now rejects it?
Well, exactly. I mean, in typical teenage fashion, we had him baptized, and immediately he decided the Pope is the Antichrist, and he's discovered that Jesus, a more palatable version of Jesus exists in the Protestant faith.
Yes, he's right.
So I sent him, I said, listen, you go talk to my friend Nat, who's a deacon in the church, and he can, so I don't know if he's thinking mainline Protestants like you guys or the Lutherans, or if he's thinking like
the snake handling
and that kind of shit, right? Because that's what I always think of.
We didn't plan that, by the way. We just share a brain.
I actually sat down and read the entire Gospel of Mark the other night. Trying to figure out, what he's been reading. Because I gave him my student Bible. I was like, here, this one has like it's like annotated. So,
if you want to learn
I'm like, go read that. And I was like, well, shit, I haven't read that stuff in a while. Maybe I should sit down and read it. And
that's a good gospel.
It is.
I like Mark.
I think it's
well written.
The original. Drafted first. People say John, but other people say no. So I don't know. I don't want to get into the weeds on theology at the moment, but suffice it to say that, maybe he'll be knocking on your door looking for
I would be happy to. I don't think I've had one conversation with him.
No.
So that would be cool.
Well, I've barely had one conversation with him in the last couple of years. But anyway, so he's working at this scuba shop. My friend who I mentioned on this podcast before, who was, talking about drinking and stuff.
Seamus?
No, different friend. I can't say his name. Okay. But the catch is I'm paying him because my friend's shop is not like a money maker. There's not a lot of money in teaching scuba.
Or selling sports equipment.
That's right. It's a small business, So I am subsidizing the wages. So I'm trying to keep his hours low also.
I think that's good.
Money. I'm just trying to teach him,
some people,
self-reliance and stuff.
I'm along with that. I like that. I think that's good.
Yeah.
But what about getting back to work? Is that something you've been thinking about?
No, you really are doing the outline.
Well, we're running a little long.
I know. I'm sorry. Sure. I'm just diarrhea of the mouth today. Yeah. I'm getting a little anxious about the world reopening and going back to work and work travel and having to go to conferences and all that stuff. I mean, it's very easy for me to sit in my house and not drink. But
what I'm worried about is how is this going to affect the show?
I'm a little worried about that too, to be honest with you. We can do it on the road. I've done it before, but it's I know.
If we did that, we have to come up with a better way of recording.
Yeah, we might have to shift to like weekends doing it on. Late
night. Well, my favorite.
I mean, what else do you do Saturday night? I go to bed at like 9 o'clock. So
I'm hostage by my kids. I am like
your kids are younger. My kids typically
hostage.
Don't want anything to do with me. So.
And then we could talk. I mean, we had such a night last night, but And you said you sent me this article too, and you're just like last minute. I want to talk about this article, so I've gone ahead and put it in the outline, and it's off the charts rise in alcoholic liver disease among young women.
Yeah, I was just sitting on the couch last night and got a notification from NPR and apparently National Public Radio, and I also heard it saw it on the Times this morning. Wants to all of a sudden discuss about how the incessant pushing alcohol on people is now bad for them.
They've decided that finally.
Yeah,
good.
I mean, so it talks about women in their 30s are being diagnosed with cirrhosis and alcoholic hepatitis, and Erin Moore touched on this a couple of weeks ago when we were discussing the pinkening of the alcohol marketing campaigns and whatnot. And but it's really crazy how in the last year with the pandemic, the alcoholic liver disease is up 30%.
Oh man.
But then at the end they couch it and they say drinking a glass or two of wine even every day is unlikely to cause this sort of liver damage. And many people, the experts say, although it's possible.
Well, so that's not the best research.
Like smoking 3 cigarettes a day is unlikely to cause lung cancer, but
it might.
It might. So yeah. So I don't know what.
Well, this is clearly an alcoholic writing this who's looking for excuses why this isn't unhealthy or something like that.
I mean, it just struck me as really weird that the story is like 30% rise, and then it seems like they go out of their way to sort of say, well, you shouldn't stop drinking entirely, right? I mean, like it says the pathway to that sort of liver disease varies from person to person and can be exacerbated by obesity, genetic factors, and underlying health problems. Can you imagine if they were saying stuff like that about cigarettes, like, or anything else that's, or like small amounts of like environmental toxins, but no, it's alcohol. So have at it, man.
It's a little mercury in your salmon, but
anyway, I don't know. It popped up, and
so let's put a link to it in the show notes.
I'm going to put a link to in the show notes.
You can see what was going through his mind. Okay, I think it's time to get to our main topic.
Yes.
So today we wanted to review a documentary / with fictional vignettes, I guess you could call it.
I think the whole thing was a drama. It was a scripted and acted.
But it's like documentary thing where they give you, facts about.
Very brief though.
And then there's the fictional vignette.
Right. And then they interrupt it once in the middle with the whole slew of facts, which we're going to discuss.
It's called Body Brokers. It's written and directed by John Swab. And
was John Swab recently on another podcast?
Yeah, so I have to say that I completely got this from Amy Dresner and Joe Schrank's podcast. It's called Rehab Confidential. I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of those two. And I was listening to their new show, and I heard this guy, he was interviewed. And I thought, oh, man, because I thought I knew every addiction movie that's possibly out. But this one, the description is online. A drug addict is brought to Los Angeles for treatment, who soon learns the treatment center is not meant to help people, but instead a cover-up. For a fraud operation enlisting addicts to recruit other addicts. It's got a very Sid and Nancy, Bonnie and Clyde thing going on.
Do you think that description is really accurate? I mean,
I don't know. I just copy and pasted it, so
yeah.
It was rushing. They're on the run. They're big. There's this couple. It's her name is
Opal, and she's played by Alice Englert, who apparently is Australian. I would never have guessed because she doesn't do the accent. And Jack Kilmer, who plays Utah, her boyfriend.
They call him Utah.
Yeah.
And they're basically on the run in, I guess it's Florida, where all this stuff happens.
Ohio.
Oh, they're in Ohio. Yeah. Sort of like Florida. But and then so they're borrowing and stealing. They're on pretty much. It starts off they're robbing a convenience store. All of this to pay their to get more drugs.
Heroin, mostly crack.
Yeah.
See typical addict lifestyle, living in a seedy motel. She's turning the occasional trick for heroin. Go ahead. Sorry.
And so they encounter
filling in details.
And so somehow I must have missed it, but they encounter the guy who played Omar on The Wire,
Michael Kenneth Williams.
Thank you. I just
plays
call him
a
Omar.
fellow by the name of Wood.
I'm so glad you did the actual research.
I did it this morning.
Oh, great.
I mean, I watched the movie yesterday.
Yeah, and so he's basically, he comes off as he's trying to help. He offers them food. Let me feed you. I'm just trying to help. This is not a religious thing. He keeps reassuring them. And boy, is it not a religious thing. And basically, he's like, I can help you. You guys should get into treatment. He's saying all the right things.
Right.
And the girl doesn't want to go for it at first, but the boy goes along with it.
Yeah.
And then what happens? So he goes to the intake. Omar sets him up.
Right.
Gets him in. And he soon learns that other addicts he meets at this place, this is his first time, they're actually getting paid by Omar. I keep calling him Omar. What's his
name is Wood.
Wood. so that he's getting paid by Wood to actually go to rehab. And so once Utah, it comes to like figures out what's going on, like he's definitely struggles with it, inside. You can tell he's struggling with it, but he sees Wood living this life, and Wood's like, yo man, you get this cut, and it sort of it pulls back it pulls down the veil over what is going on in the rehab industry.
So Wood's got this really swanky place on looks like it's in Malibu, overlooking the ocean out there in LA, and and the rehab center is not like some rinky-dink little place. I mean, this is clearly set forth as like one of these Malibu,
looks like,
rehab,
Passages Malibu.
Beautiful, nice swimming pool. You contrast that with the way the movie opened, where they're sort of scrounging around in Ohio, and like it's gross, and all of a sudden he's in this sun-dappled, room going through group therapy with everyone's very, very clean and polished, and the therapists are all very nice and compassionate, and so. It seems like there is some therapy being done there.
Oh, yeah.
And
the kid got 90 days sober.
Yeah. And the way that they portrayed the therapist was as an extremely sympathetic person, as well as the intake person. And you were going to talk about the intake interview, because that made an impression on me. And I've never been to an intake interview, but man,
I've sat through a few.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting to see.
So these intake interviews, anytime you are a new patient at an outpatient or inpatient rehab, you have to sit there with a therapist, and you do what's called the intake. And the intake is basically you are telling your whole story, how much you did, how much you wanted to do, all the way back. So you're basically sitting there and telling this person you just met everything. And I can't remember if my first couple where I lied about stuff, but by the time I got to the final time I was in rehab, I was very honest at this intake. And I just remember having to go back to these intake interviews and just going, oh, I have to do this again. And then he gets in. I mean, but they show it's very realistic.
So once he's in for a little while, the documentary part of the thing kind of drops back in, and they start talking about how much money you can make doing, or these facilities make, and the owners of these facilities make by doing certain things. So they send the patients out for urine tests. So the urine test that they give people a couple times a week,
up to 5 times.
The big thing in the background here was when the Affordable Care Act was passed in 2007, 2008. It led to required insurance reimbursement for drug treatments and rehabs. So if an addict had insurance, great. If they didn't have insurance, a company like the one that Wood worked for would add them as an employee, so they would be eligible for insurance under the Affordable Care Act, sign them up, and then bill that insurance.
Yeah.
So there were no, as we all know, there were no cost controls put on the Affordable Care Act. So back to the piss tests.
Gold.
Yeah, they tested people like 4 times a week or 5 times a week at $2,000 a piss test is what they would bill these insurance companies for.
And this is where the documentary aspect comes in. Like after they show a little bit of action with what the kids are up to, then it cuts to like a documentary, and they tell you things like, each cup of piss makes them $2,000, we just said, and the addicts can be tested up to 5 times a week. It's $10,000 per week.
Yeah, crazy.
Then there's 3 phases of rehab and recovery that they make their money on. The following is how much they bill. This is what I wrote. The insurance for each service. A medical detox. And this is when you first go in. I've been through a few of these, and it's exactly like it sounds. You're in a hospital bed, you're detoxed with detoxification medications that give you like
benzos.
They might give you Ativan, and they give you something for Vistral to sleep, and they give you something else to just get relaxed a little bit.
Right.
Your blood pressure medications. Sometimes they'll supplement a couple days with like methadone and just taper you off within a couple of days. And they get and they get $4,000 per day for each day that the patient is in medical detox, meaning the rehab bills the insurance for each day that person is in the hospital detox, $4,000, and insurance pays. That can be 7 to 10 days. The next is the residential treatment. So you detox, and then they usually have a partner, or it's in the same facility, and you go to the, like what we think of as a 28-day program, except, you know, they usually keep you longer if they can. And some insurances would pay up to 60 days, and it's $2,000 average per day.
They had that one girl who had been there for 9 months.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much money they were making?
I met people in rehabs at LICR. There was a guy staying there. He had to stay for a year. And it's because he cut some deal with the judge.
Right.
Instead of jail time, he would stay there for a year.
But a year at $2,000 a day.
So it's because he has insurance. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's $2,000 a day for 2,000 years. After your 60 days, if you make it through, you do outpatient. You heard us talking about outpatient earlier. This is a step down in intensity. You get to stay usually, and they didn't talk about sober house and how people make money on a sober house. Because on top of all this, you usually have a sober house that's owned and operated by the rehab, where you will stay with other addicts, and you pay, usually it's about $500 a week they pay, and insurance doesn't usually cover that. So while you're staying there, you come back 5 to 7 days a week to go to group. Usually it's intensive outpatient, which is 3 hours, 3 times a week. And on top of that, you have your individual session. They don't talk about that in the movie, that you also pay for. And so the total at $2,500 per day for 90 days is about $300,000 per addict per 90 days. Now, if you had the place that he was talking about had 60 beds, it came to $18 million per quarter and $72 million per year.
That explains why everybody was driving around in Porsches and whatnot. Frank Grillo played the guy Vin, who was the owner of this particular rehab, who is basically the sleaziest. Great character, by the way.
I used to be an addict. Yeah, now I'm not.
Yeah,
that guy.
Totally sleazy guy. Do you think these numbers are exaggerated for effect? Because I mean,
no,
that amount of money will get you, top line treatment in one of these fancy Malibu places, but I can't imagine like if you're treating somebody in some shithole in the inner city somewhere,
they still bill insurance.
They're still billing them that much money.
The issue comes when the addicts have no insurance, and that was where that movie American Relapse with Frankie from the Fuck Heroin Foundation and Ali Severino.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
It's really interesting, and also there's a documentary series about those two called Dope Sick Nation, which is a must watch. Everybody, please watch it. It's so good. I've watched it 1,000 times. It's edgier than Intervention, but it's really about Frankie and Ali Severino are quote unquote body brokers.
Okay.
But they're doing it for people, like they say that they're fighting against all of this corruption.
Right. Because when I was watching it, I was thinking there must be places that do this ethically.
Right.
And make money.
Yeah, because
can't you do both?
You can, and that's what Ali Severino and Frankie tried to do, and that's what they followed them around, where they would have their usual patients that they helped to get into rehab,
right?
Where they would make money, but they would also go out of their way to find, because they would get scholarships for these addicts that just don't have anybody. But, they're still dipping into that insurance gold mine. Now, these people who are being, exposed in this documentary, they are really at least portrayed like evil villains,
Well, they seem like Boiler Room Wall Street type guys, right?
It reminded me of Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah. But the real thing, and I didn't finish watching it, but I got to the part where they were talking about that surgeon. Now,
okay, so let me fill in a couple gaps here. Yeah. So what happened was that Utah, after he gets his 90-day chip inside the rehab, decides that what's his name? Wood starts kind of gently recruiting him to work with him. He gets him a weekend pass. They go to the carnival. They're walking around, and he says, listen, why don't you come and work for me? And Utah at this point doesn't really know what he does other than, finds people and brings them to rehab. So the next big chunk of the movie is Utah sort of getting involved with this group, this company. They're disguised as like a marketing company, where he helps Wood go and body broker. Like he'll go, like, and there's this whole network set up. There's like a house that's run by this woman who's also selling heroin and cocaine, and she brings addicts to the table, and then they go in and give money, give the addict a little bit of money to keep them in drugs for a couple days before they go to rehab. Then they pay $2,000 per person
because
goes
they know
to the addict.
They know they're going to get half of whatever the rehab gets. Which is like $9,000.
Yeah. So that's Utah's getting involved in all of that stuff. And then apparently, there's something called a naltrexone implant, which became popular a few years ago, apparently. And this is another way that these guys figured out how to make money. So what they did was they found a dodgy surgeon who is, morally compromised in some way.
He's a famous actor too, I know.
Yeah, he was a creepy looking guy, man. He looked like he could play a Nazi pretty well.
I think he has.
Has he really?
Yeah.
So if you were on the street, they would round you up,
and they get $60,000.
$60,000 per surgery, right? So they would round up vans full of these guys, and the doctor said, I can do 20 a day, and then at somewhere on the back end, these things are going to have to come out. So we'll get paid coming and going. So Utah drives the van. He rounds up all these addicts, offers them. I don't know how much money he's paying them, but it's not a lot of money.
And into an addict, it's a couple grand is a lifesaver, a life changer.
Right.
They have to stay. I mean, the catch is, and he says this, and I don't know how this plays out in the movie, but he says like, you don't get paid if you don't stay the full stay at the rehab. So that right there is a problem for most addicts.
Yes.
But the ones who they call them lifers, who just keep going in and out, keep making money. And that's their whole shtick. But the surgery thing takes it to a whole new level of evil.
Right.
The way I see it.
I don't know how much I want to give away about what happens with the doctor and what happens at the end of the movie, since you haven't seen it, and chances are a lot of our listeners haven't seen it. But they all
die or something. I mean, somebody dies of an overdose.
I don't want to.
Or somebody dies on the table getting the surgery.
Yeah.
Now, the naltrexone implant sounds like a great fucking idea, man. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I would have done that because I got the Vivitrol naltrexone shot,
right?
Which is great.
Except, so there's this whole back drama going on with Utah and Opal, his girl, who has now been brought out there by Wood to participate in rehab out in California. She got paid to go out there, of course, and but
he does get the girlfriend to join up,
right? Except that she's not really in it for the recovery; she's kind of in it for the money,
right?
So she gets in the van to go get the implant. And he sees her, and he's like, "What are you doing? You're high. You shouldn't be." She's like, "Wake up, Utah. Everybody in this van is high right now who's going to get the surgery." Yeah. And she goes, "And don't worry, I got some guy who'll take it out later for a couple of $100."
Yeah. Like, and they said that when they're meeting with the surgeon. I mean, it's so icky. Like there's one scene where Utah and Wood are going to speak to the mother of an addict.
Right.
And this is one of the first things because they have to go in and because usually it's the parents' insurance that they're billing.
Right.
Even though it's a 25-year-old kid or something like that.
Or you can be on your parents' insurance till you're 26 under.
And the way they flip and just look empathetic and sound empathetic, like they're trying to help, they're just acting. So it's crazy. And then when they leave the house, you see Wood gets on the phone and they said something like, he said, "Well, how'd it go?" He goes, "They got insurance." "Oh, great." And he's like, "Not only that, husband's in a union." They're like, "Booyah."
Yeah, high fives.
High fives. Because that'll be endless. I knew so many people in unions and rehabs. I mean, they just keep sending them back over and over. I mean, I know a guy in a union, won't say, you know who you are, went 4 times to an expensive Pennsylvania rehab.
And all on the
absolutely.
Funds dime.
And outpatient and everything.
So I thought it was a good movie. I
would you
enjoyed
recommend it to all your friends?
I would. Well, any of them who just want to cry in their coffee after watching it. But I will say, like some parts annoyed me. Like Utah decides to leave rehab after 90 days. He starts a relationship with the intake nurse. who checked him in.
Nice.
And, she's like, I'm not allowed to see people for 2 years, but if you happen to find yourself on the corner of this street and this street tomorrow night at 7 p.m., I'll be there. So he goes, and it's like her getting him to an AA meeting or an NA meeting. Yeah. So he goes to the NA meeting.
Right, they show some meetings.
Yeah, he listens to them because he wasn't going to any meetings after he left rehab, right? So she takes him to that one, and the guy gets up there and basically tells his story, very similar. And so he goes up to him after the meeting and says, man, you just told me my story. Thanks. He's like, yeah, keep coming back. And of course, Utah doesn't come back. And then, things happen to Utah. So the not so subtle message is that if you don't have a program, bad things are going to happen to you.
And there's a lot of truth to that. Absolutely.
Is there?
Yeah. You got a program. I got to get a program. You got to get a program, and he's got to get a program, and she's got to get a program.
Well, she said something like, when he's like, no, I'm not going to meetings, and she's like, just willpower, huh? I'm thinking, well, maybe not. Maybe he read This Naked Mind, or maybe, who knows what his program was. But, so he, I don't know. He doesn't, things don't end well. Let's just put it that way. Things don't end
well. Suffice it to say, if you're interested in addiction, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are, in addiction issues, this is a must-watch. On top of that, I would recommend watching, it's called The Business of Recovery. It's also available on Amazon somewhere. We'll provide links for you guys to purchase or rent these movies. If you do it through our link, it helps us a little bit. So please look for that link. And we look forward to hearing your opinions of this on the Facebook group. Sign up. It's easy to find us on Facebook, Recovery in the Middle Ages, in the search, and find the private group, apply, and if you are a good person, we will let you in. And you can talk to us.
I let people in who don't even answer the questions.
Right. Yeah. Oh, really? You're not supposed to. We're just happy. We've got 299 people, and I'm starting to see a buzz on there. People are beginning to respond to me when
don't cause trouble.
No trouble.
I had to throw out a couple people already.
Yeah, there's no dicks allowed. Yeah. People who are judgy and dicky, no, I don't want to hear from you. I don't like you. So that is our movie review.
Yes.
For today.
Yay. If you liked it, let us know, because we'll do more of them. Yeah,
there's a Sound of Metal is up for an Academy Award. And I've already watched that. It's another fictional movie about a heavy metal drummer who loses his hearing. And at the same time, he becomes deaf. He actually goes to a rehab for people who can't hear, and then they teach them recovery and how to speak with sign language and read Braille. Wow! And it's about his journey, and it's getting a lot of buzz. It is very good.
That was just recommended to me after I watched the other movie.
It's anticlimactic, I'll say that. It's not like your typical hero's journey, which is annoying. And that is our movie review. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, we don't have music.
I don't know. Maybe I'll come up with something.
So we were talking earlier this week. The show's going long, guys, so strap in.
Right. That's 52. 52 minutes so far.
Recovering the news or story time?
Recovering the news.
Right? All right. Yeah.
So, Recovering the News this week is more of a theme than it is a specific story, although there is a specific story that goes with it. Stop it. So the overarching topic is why it's dangerous to talk about sobriety as a wellness trend.
Isn't that the title of the article?
Okay.
I put it there.
I don't know.
Okay.
I sent you a link, but I didn't actually look at the
Forget topic. Rhubarb gin and rose all day.
Come January, it seems like all the cool kids are sober. The New York Times has written before about the new sobriety, highlighting the waves of people ditching booze for the sake of their health, not because they have an issue with alcohol.
On the face
Heaven
of it,
forbid.
On the face of it, sobriety slots in. That's a horrible way of saying that. Sobriety slots in neatly alongside other wellness trends like meditation apps, Reiki, and eating raw foods for breakfast. I just like reading stuff for
Who
the
eats
news.
Raw food for breakfast? What does that mean?
I think raw. I've heard of this.
Sushi?
Nah, like vegetables that you pick off the tree and just eat, like a rabbit. Like rabbits have like a...
That's a trend?
Yeah, raw.
I'm old.
You
I mean,
could-
I know
raw vegan
I know
is a
about
thing.
raw vegan, but
So that's what it means.
couldn't you say that differently than eating raw food for breakfast? What the fuck does that mean? Anyway, I mean, it's sheknows.com. I don't know what
She
that
knows.
is.
What does she know?
Sorry, keep going.
I wasn't. Well, people write books about it that aren't addiction memoirs based on horror stories of blackouts and absconding from rehab. Sober Instagram influencers boast thousands of followers, including regular drinkers and the sober curious. Alcohol-free bars, we've been talking about this, like Listen Bar in New York City and Sands Bar in Texas are popping up all over the place.
And hipsters are hanging out there.
Right.
Let's not forget.
That's it.
That's important, because if the hipsters are there, it must be cool.
I mean, I think the idea is great.
Me too. No one can deny that giving up or at least cutting down on booze is a major positive. It boosts your immune system. It improves your cardiovascular health and liver health, decreases your risk of cancer, and even helps your brain work better. Not this writers, apparently, but that's another issue. So more sobriety is talked about. The more people take the plunge and switch cocktails for mocktails, the more good it's doing on a large scale. So what's the problem, Nat?
Why is that a problem? I think it's great that there's other options for us people who don't want to drink. What, like a cool
I
place
agree
to
too,
hang.
but I've
What problem
there's
do you
another
have?
article that I read that somebody said, well, you can't treat people that have just quitting drinking the same as people who are addicted to alcohol or have like
That's our
or
addiction
who are a
spectrum.
quote alcoholic. I disagree. I think any movement towards stopping the use of alcohol is great, and I don't think you need to hit your rock bottom before you decide that quitting drinking is a positive thing in your life.
No, but what does that have to do with having a cool place to hang out that doesn't have drinking?
It's nothing, but there was controversy.
Controversy.
And that, because actually there were two articles that I had.
Oh, I didn't put them
The
both
second
in.
one
I'm sorry.
was a criticism of this sober movement.
Oh, I see. So Article 1, this is my fault. Article 1 was about how cool it is to have these hipster bars that are just like kava, non-alcoholic beer, if you will, and kratom drinks. And this is popping up. And then the other article was criticizing this movement.
Yeah, I mean, basically the argument is that by describing sobriety as a wellness trend, there's a danger of making light of the difficult realities faced by many sober people who
That's so
identify as alcoholics
stupid.
or alcohol use disorder, who simply recognize that their relationship with alcohol was becoming negative in their lives.
I don't care how you get people to stop drinking.
Yeah, me either. I don't see why we need a division between the
Gives a
people
shit.
who want to stop drinking because they have realized before they, hit the bottom that it's something that they need to get rid of from their lives, and the other people who took it a little further and,
Yeah, I'm more along the lines of thought that I think it's no matter how or who you're getting to not drink, not to like proselytize and be a dick about it to other people, but like any kind of thing like that where it's making it easy for people to have fun without drinking, I think is a great thing.
I agree.
And things that are counter to that, like in this pandemic, we have drive-through fucking tequila slushies in town.
Right.
Like that, I don't like that. I don't think it's a positive change. There's no good that can come from that.
No.
And it hasn't. No good has come from it.
If the pandemic has done anything, it's normalized excessive drinking even more than it was before.
And I'm hoping, though, that all of this pain and sorrow and overdoses and people discovering this in their lives, because a lot of people are realizing that they have a drinking problem.
Yes.
That may be the silver lining, is that now people are talking more about mental health than ever before, because everybody's suffering with it. Almost everybody is having some kind of distress related to this pandemic. And I'm seeing more and more on the news and newspapers talking about it,
Yes.
saying like, hey, we need to do something about your mental health. It doesn't mean you're crazy. And I think that's great.
You can see the backlash against the pandemic drinking starting now.
Yeah.
I have those Google reminders set for
And when an article comes out?
yeah,
Great
addiction,
idea.
12-step, alcoholism, and
Did you put our podcast name in it in case there's an article about us?
I should.
Yes, definitely do that.
But what I've noticed over the last few months is that the amount of articles on the dangers of pandemic drinking have increased quite a bit. So I think people are starting to say, wait a minute, now that we're coming out of this, there's people who are not going to be able to ratchet down the drinking that they ratcheted up.
And not to mention the damage that has been done to your health just by drinking that much.
Right.
We don't know if that's all reversible.
Right. I mean,
a lot of it is. The body does heal.
I certainly hope it is.
Yeah, because we would end. But
anyway, so if you guys have thoughts on that,
let's talk about it.
Should there be alcoholic versus like a sober curious cage match, death match, or can't we all just get along?
What do we think about all this nomenclature? It's
I don't know.
Recovery in the news.
That's it. So, Nat, I don't think this week's Week in Weird is very surprising.
Week in Weird. Amityville Horror killer Ronald DeFeo Jr. dies in state custody. Records show. Ronald DeFeo Jr., who massacred his family in 1974 in their Amityville home while they slept, a case that gained national attention and spawned multiple books and movies, died Friday while imprisoned, according to state prison records. DeFeo, 69, was serving a 25 years to life sentence at the Sullivan Correctional Facility at an upstate Fallsburg for each of his 6 slayings, records show. This is if you don't know what this is, there is a ton of horror movies based on this because it's believed by those of us who know that he was possessed by a demon. And in fact, that's what he blamed it on. And that there was serious, hauntings for years after in that house that were reported. I think Elaine and the Warren married couple, I can't think of the Warrens, were famously, went there to investigate it. They've made movies about it. And so him passing away, it just reminded us all about the Amityville Horror, which took place nearby us on Long Island.
Yes. Actually, the people that bought the house after the murders, the Lutz family, they had to flee after a month, I think, in the house because they heard doors being slammed and strange noises at night and everything.
It's a real deal, man.
I don't know what your experience was with the Amityville Horror House, but when I was in high school, my friends and I used to drive down to it and pee on the front lawn after drinking beer. So that
it is a local legend by us.
That was they got so much trouble from people doing stuff like that they changed the windows in the attic
because it had those famous windows. You know? So look for that article in the show notes, and that is Week in Weird. Well, that about does it for us today. Nice long show. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
It's actually shorter than...
Is it really? See, we're trying to do long shows, and then we rush. Thanks so much for listening. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com. Join the discussion on our exclusive and private Facebook group. If you need to talk, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and some of you are, and it's great. I love to chat with the people who are listening and, and all of that. So check out the show notes, too. Mike works very hard on those. You can get us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Tweet us at twat, you twit. Apple Podcasts, and wherever fine podcasts are sold, 5-star reviews will be read on air. And we will see you next time.
See you next time. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention.
Yes.
Just apropos of, I know you're wrapping up. You're looking at me like
I've got the wrap
punch
up.
Me right
looking.
in the face.
No, it's fine. Keep going.
We are not therapists.
Yes.
And we are not recovery counselors. So a couple people have sent us messages on Facebook. We indicating that they were in some sort of extremis and needed some help. We are happy to point you in the right direction of things that you can do and numbers to call, but it's a little beyond our ability. We're just a couple of buffoons.
Reach out,
podcast.
Right. Reach out to us like you would someone else in the program, just for support.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I wanted to say.
And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
That's progress, not perfection. Oh, be good.
See you next time.
And